All right, handing over to the founders, Jon and Zakk. Tell us about how we did in season 2.
Yeah, so I'm going to kick things off with a little bit of a short story and then hand it over to Jon to actually go through all of the amazing things that we accomplished this past season. One of the things that Jon and I first bonded over, this will surprise nobody, is our love of cities and the founding stories of cities. And my favorite city in the world is Buenos Aires in Argentina. And what a lot of people don't know about Buenos Aires is that it was actually founded twice. The first time was somewhat unsuccessful, and they ended up having to pivot. The group that originally set out to found Buenos Aires had to pivot. And then 20 years later, as the group returned and tried to found Buenos Aires again. And this actually ended up being the core strength or like being what made not only Buenos Aires as the city that it is today, but Argentina, the country that it is today, right? Because when they left for the first time and pivoted, they left their cows. This is why Argentina is known for such incredible beef. They left their cows, and 25 or so years later, when they returned, those cows had naturalized and become a part of the local ecosystem. And that is why Argentina is now known for, that became the foundation of the economic engine that is Argentina and Buenos Aires, and fueled all the cultural growth that we see in Buenos Aires and all that. A lot of like early Hollywood actually originated in Buenos Aires and et cetera. And so led to this just like incredibly majestic city because there was no clear individual founding. And this is actually true for a lot of cities. If you look at cities like, Paris and New York, there we have like retroactively ascribed a founding date. But when you dig into the story, typically where these cities are not founded, they actually emerge out of a lot of activity. And that is also the case for Cabin. We can't really like look back and say that Cabin was founded on X date because, if we go back before the Cabin that we are right now, we get into the Cabin that we were last summer, where we were running these residency programs for creators and bringing random people off the internet together in person. And then before that, we were actually like a group of friends, including Jon and David Vargas, who's on the call here, who like met together once a week for almost a whole year, right? And then there's even like permutations of Cabin that exist before that, right? That sort of like emergence from this collective activity is something that we saw this past season, and I think hit a real crescendo. There was a moment during the first creator residency program where like Jon and I were out on a walk on the property when the residency program was going on, where we were like, this is it, like we've done it. And it wasn't just like eureka, right? It was like we felt it in our hearts, right? Like it was a very like tangible emotional feeling of like, this is the core of what we do and this is who we are. And that's like what we're really excited to celebrate here today. Looking backwards, we're able to draw a path of how we got there, but looking forwards, there was no way we could have predicted where we would end up or how we got here. And so the point of the story here is just to reflect on all of that. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Jon to list many of the other incredible things that happened this past season.
Awesome. Yes, it has been an incredible season for us. I'll quickly run through some of these. Basically over the course of season 2, we have emerged as one of the top social DAOs. And the way we've done this is by progressively decentralizing into 5 guilds that have strong leadership and contributors across the guilds that has allowed us to do an incredible amount, in a short period of time, which includes a full slate of retreats and residencies and build weeks at Node 0, building out physical infrastructure, getting started on node expansion, publishing some of the best content about DAOs across the Web3 ecosystem, launching a podcast, and even more on the next slide, which we will, there we go. Growing our online community, shipping both our passports product and Blaze. We were featured in the New Yorker. We completed a treasury diversification to help set ourselves up for long-term success. It really has been an incredible past few months, and I think beyond what any of us could have imagined. And to that point, you go to the next slide, we can look at our 2022 Roadmap Scorecard and get a sense of where we're at here. And the reality is that we are ahead of schedule right now. We've already started to accomplish some of the things on our 2022 roadmap to become an embassy for DAOs, and most of the other things are on track. They're things that we will accomplish in the coming months. The only 2 things on here that probably don't fit that are one, our retreat program. We're actually, I think, very successfully running retreats on a consistent basis right now. I don't know that we'll hit 25 this year, but that's only because we've invested more in scaling up some of our other programs like residencies, and the decentralized product engine, which I think is an intentional decision that we've made to pivot away from building external software for external users and focus more on building software for ourselves first and foremost. So all of this sort of begs the question, where do we go next? And now that we're kind of ahead of the curve, what do we think about that was beyond our 2022 roadmap as we move into season 3? Okay, so that's the reflections on season 2. And now we're going to talk about our themes for season 3. But first, a special message from JJ Powell.
I think that's me. We know JJ Powell makes the printer go burr, and we also make the printer go burr at Cabin sometimes. We ended up with some leftover Cabin in the budget in the Meta Guild, and instead of responsibly investing it in ETFs and other things, we're gonna give it out to some Cabin members who we think need a little recognition. So here are some special Employee of the Season awards that are going to folks who we feel like may not have been recognized enough in their contributions by the amount of Cabin they got. And we're sort of doing things on the side that maybe didn't have bounties attached to them, but were big contributions to the DAO. And so every guild has sort of nominated a person, and I will announce them now, and they will get an award of 50 Cabin from JJ Powell. Charlie, who I don't think is on the call, did amazing stuff for the Placemakers Guild, hosted an incredible build week, and is designing all sorts of off-grid structures right now for Node Zero. He's probably in class because he's still in college, but he knows more about building than any of us. Kathy, I think we all know MVP Kathy. The Todd Father, who jumped in and took over all the finances and tax and sort of plumbing behind how Cabin works. It really jumped in there and got everything in shape. And Allie, the person that makes the Media Guild go along with Roxine. Thank you for all the work you've done. So each of you getting Printer Goes Burr 50 Cabin tokens, Employees of the Season.
Awesome. Congratulations to everybody who was nominated for a Printer Goes Burr award. We're so grateful to have you all in the community. That wraps our season 2 look back. And now we are going to move on to talk about our theme for season 3.